For thousands of years, horses have been a major influence in many major civilizations, great empires, and countless wars. They have shaped the history of the modern human world. As horses were domesticated, the saddle became an essential tool, allowing horses to become even more useful. The development of the saddle was a major step forward towards modernizing the world and has helped civilizations around the globe explore new lands and exchange new ideas. The saddle itself was developed from such encounters and has proved a useful tool in the development of modern civilization and many industrial revolutions. As horses became a major part of daily life, people began to develop ways to ride more comfortably. Around 700 BC, Assyrian warriors developed and began to use saddlecloths. Saddlecloths were also extremely common among many other ancient civilizations, and many were elaborately decorated. They were draped over the horse, adding an extra layer between the rider and the horse, as well as adding decoration. There are some who believe that around 200 to 300 BC, treed saddles appeared. A saddle tree is what the saddle is built around. It is also said that leather saddles appeared around this time, though other sources state that no real saddle was around until the invention of the Roman cavalry saddle. Saddles gave huge advantages to the rider, and this new step in the development of the saddle helped the Romans become even more powerful. The Roman cavalry saddle was made of wood, covered in leather, and had 4 horns, 2 in front and 2 in back, to keep the rider in place. There is much question and uncertainty about dates, and many events and times are approximate, as many ancient civilizations did not always record these events. Sometime after the invention of the Roman cavalry saddle, the saddle branched off into 2 major groups, Hungarian and Moorish. The English and Western saddles of today are direct descendants of the Hungarian and Moorish saddles, but have had some alterations over time. The Hungarian saddle eventually developed into the modern English saddle. The dressage saddle, the jumping saddle, the racing saddle, saddle seat saddle, and side saddle are all forms of the English-Hungarian saddle. In general, an English saddle will have a high cantle and a low pommel, with the exception of the jumping saddle and the racing saddle. The jumping saddle has a relatively flat seat to allow the rider to quickly change positions while jumping. Similarly, the racing saddle also has an extremely flat forward seat, so as not to interfere with the horse's motion and to allow the jockey a more level foundation. It is built for speed, so it is lightweight, and the low cantle allows it to be aerodynamic. The dressage saddle has a deep seat and a very high cantle to make sure the rider is comfortable and balanced. In dressage, the rider performs a test where they communicate a series of intricate movements to the horse. The saddle seat saddle, or the cutback saddle, is similar to the dressage saddle, but is made for horses with high withers as well as gaited breeds. The Moorish saddle eventually evolved into the modern Western saddle. Western saddles are also categorized by purpose, but there are prominent similarities in all Western saddles. A traditional Western saddle weighs around 40 to 50 pounds, and while most Western saddles today have been modified to be a little lighter, they all feature the horn at the front for roping cattle and the high cantle in the back. The types of Western saddles today include saddles for roping, reining, cutting, barrel racing, or trail. Roping saddles are built to allow maximum freedom for the rider. They are used for roping steer, so the horn of the saddle is very strong. Roping saddles must be tough and well built, so most have a wooden tree with a bullhide cover for durability. Reining saddles are designed to provide the rider with close contact to communicate with their horse. They have a low pommel and horn, so that nothing interferes with the movement of the rider's hands and reins. Cutting saddles are made for the sport of cutting, where the rider separates a single steer from the herd. They have a tall, thin horn so the rider can easily grab on, and a flat, smooth, long seat to allow easy maneuverability and balance for the rider. Barrel racing saddles are made for the sport of barrel racing, where the horse and rider will complete a cloverleaf pattern around a series of barrels with the fastest time. Similar to the English racing saddle, barrel racing saddles are made for speed, and therefore are the lightest of all the Western saddles. They have a deep seat, higher cantle, and a taller, thinner horn, so that the rider can stay in the saddle during fast, sharp turns. Trail saddles, also known as Western pleasure saddles, are built solely for comfort while riding and are designed for pleasure riding and people who spend hours in the saddle. They feature a higher fork, a thinner horn, a medium cantle, and a padded seat for comfort. Today, most saddles are used more for sporting or recreational purpose, but many Western saddles are still used for work. As the saddle was being developed, the empires like the Romans that had the direct access to the first saddles had an immediate advantage over the other ancient civilizations. This allowed them to conquer more territory and made it easier for trade. The saddle was most likely brought to the Americas through the Spanish conquistadors around 14 to 1500. Likewise, many Spanish and Portuguese explorers brought the idea of the saddle with them when they explored new lands, bringing the saddle all around the globe. These encounters greatly influenced the development of the saddle. With conquering empires, exploring new lands, and trading, the economies of these civilizations blossomed. There was a lot of direct military impact following the invention of the first saddle because it gave an extreme amount of power to the user. Besides the military impact, there was also an extreme amount of change in the transportation system. Previously, chariots and carts were used, but the saddle allowed people to ride on their own and was a more effective form of transportation because people who couldn't afford a buggy or cart could now transport themselves. Today, the way we work, the way we travel, and how we live has all been influenced by our use of horses in our history. They have been a large part of the human world for thousands of years. The saddle has played a role of almost equal importance, being an essential tool throughout our past. Horses were the animals we relied on for survival, and they were a large influence as people explored new lands, fought wars, conquered empires, and industrialized the world as we know it. Saddles have allowed comfort while riding and have helped change horses into more than just a form of transportation. Today, riding is more used for personal leisure and is no longer the necessity it once was, but the significance of it in our past and the way it shaped our future will always be there.
Push them back.